Hello, it's Tuesday, July 14th, 2020, and welcome to Think. We want to talk a little bit today. This is the initial uh, broadcast or podcast, or whatever you call this. This is the initial. We want to talk a little politics to start, get the ball rolling, which is one of the topics that we're probably going to touch upon quite often. Uh, Last night I was watching Antiques Roadshow, which is a great show. I love the show. And on it, there was a lady who had a letter which Robert Kennedy Jr. wrote to her in 1968. It was in response to a letter she sent to Kennedy where she voiced concerns about uh, civil rights. And Kennedy's response, it was a one-page letter, very articulate and basically acknowledged that they were in the same camp. They had concerns. He wanted to make sure opportunity was afforded. He wanted to make sure that education was afforded. He wanted to make sure that um, growth opportunities were afforded to the minorities. And this was 1968, over 50 years ago, that this letter was proffered to by Robert Kennedy. Uh, my question is, if those concerns definitely existed in the 60s. We had the civil rights movement back then. Uh, 50 years later, been a lot of politicians come and go. And among them, Joe Biden. He's been in politics for 40 years. So my question is, what have you done while you've been at the reign? What have you done in your 40 years? What have you done in your 8 years as Vice President of the United States? You come out today and you tell us what you're going to do. Does that mean that you were negligent in not having done so the last 40 years? I think you got to answer to that. I think that you have to understand who Joe Biden is before November comes and goes. Joe Biden is a 40-year career politician with a very minuscule track record as to what he's accomplished. Um, Other than being Barack Obama's vice president, uh, I don't think there's a lot that you can point to on the that the Democrats would want to point to on the positive side. We could start. He's run for president twice. 1988, his first attempt was mission aborted due to plagiarism issues. Uh, he quoted in his speeches a British politician, Neil Kinnock, extensively. He also plagiarized in speeches Robert Kennedy, Hubert Humphrey. As to Kinnock, he even incorporated some of Kinnock's life experiences and placed them and used them as his own life experiences. So, people saying that today he's somehow mentally challenged, he's got some issues. Could be, probably is to some extent, but I think there's also a lack of truthfulness, a willingness to say what needs to be said to advance the agenda, which is the Biden agenda. Uh, Make no mistake about it, it's the Biden agenda. Uh, I think that we're looking at an individual whose claims to fame may be um, having opposed integration, having in 1994 passed a legislation which he anchored, which resulted in mass incarcerations for minorities. Which I think that you're looking at an individual who, in 1999, along with Bill Clinton, uh, were the linchpins in overturning Glass-Steagall, which led to the mid-2000s economic collapse where big banks were too big to fail, and the result of that legislation is easy to trace and see what the results were. Did you know that Joe Biden gave the eulogy for Strom Thurmond, who was probably America's most prominent political racist? He gave the eulogy for Strom Thurmond. So Joe Biden said that to the black community, if you ain't black if you don't vote for me, to paraphrase, something along those lines. When he was up against Barack Obama, he said, you have the first mainstream African American who is articulate, bright, and clean. Joe Biden is self-serving. Joe Biden cannot tell you that he's going to address anything that's an issue at this point, because he's had more than ample opportunity to address issues. He's had 40 years to address issues. And every issue, every major decision, not every, the majority of the major decisions Joe Biden has been involved with, he's been on the wrong side. It has proven to be a bad decision. Joe Biden is along for the ride. He always has been. He's not a leader. He is along for the ride. Come November, it is going to be a decision which I feel is going to be very easy. Before this Hong Kong flu, before this came about, the United States economy was in excellent condition. I'm not going to tell you it was perfect. There were some liquidity issues which were addressed late in 19 and probably would have had some additional addressing needed in 2020, but tweaking. The unemployment rate among minorities was at all-time lows. The unemployment rate was at all-time lows. You had net worth, minority net worth, skyrocketing. You had a corporate structure where corporations were willing to reinvest. You had a corporate structure where corporations were repatriating money from overseas because of a favorable tax structure. You had growth. I think if you look at Obama's administration, to find 2% GDP, I don't think he had. I think he maybe had 1/4. I don't think he had any. And I think he may be the only two-term president that never had a 2%, or may have had one. I'm not sure. But nonetheless, it was a very dismal track record. So now we have this flu, which has been politicized, and it's been monetized, and it's been made a huge issue because all it is a piggyback for the effort that started in 2016 to overturn the election. An effort that started with Barack Obama investigating an incoming administration, and that's been proven. Unprecedented actions, which led to investigations of collusion and of involvement with foreign governments and of improprieties and impeachments. And it's been a 4-year concerted effort by the swamp, both sides, red and blue, Republican and Democrat, to overturn the election. Because the man who's in power today, the man who runs the country today, the President of the United States, Donald Trump, doesn't fit in any of the cubbyholes that our politicians have lived and thrived. They've thrived in for the last 60, 70, 80 years. As far as public service versus self-service, which is what this is today. It's self-service. There is no public service. Even Donald Trump, as much as I support him at this point, I am not going to tell you that the driving force behind Donald Trump is to make America great. It's to make Donald Trump the greatest president in the history of America and put that in the history books. And I say to that what John F. Kennedy said, a rising tide lifts all boats. If that's the objective, if that's the mandate under which Trump works, which is to be recognized as the greatest president, to be recognized as the president who led during the greatest economic times of this country, to be recognized as the president who led a country back to worldwide leadership and respect position, which was decimated under Biden. Decimated under Biden. If that's the case, if that's what drives Donald Trump, then I think that it's a absolute no-brain decision as to who we need to run this country for the next 4 years, which is Donald Trump. Again, I invite opposing views, and I listen, and I will learn, and I will hopefully be better educated as a result of these broadcasts and the feedback from them. What I won't tolerate is, unfortunately, what I run into quite a bit when I have these types of conversations. And I'm going to say this because it's, in a way, it's somewhat generalizing, but I run into it with liberals way more than I do with conservatives, which is anger, which is violence, which is threats, which is insults. Those I will not respond to. They don't exist. But educated, fact-filled narratives or conversation, more than welcome. Thank you for your time.